Hello there and welcome to Fairyland Cottage, and thanks very much for joining me here today. I thought since we're all at home it would be nice to share a few little DIY and craft projects that I have been doing, and everything that I'm using, whatever I could find in the house. So I started with making some shelves. Now I've been wanting to make these for many months. Pallets are a great way of getting some free wood. That's really simple to make into other things. I'm just making really simple squares, just measuring out 6 inches, but really it's just however big or small you want them. And all I needed was a handsaw and a little bit of sandpaper. And making these squares really got me thinking of back in my grandmother's or my great-grandmother's time. When they needed something in the house, they usually first of all went to how they could make it themselves. Whether they were able to get help from a neighbour or find other materials or either DIY products, there was a great sense of community. And so most things they just reused and remade out of what they already had. And even though you may not have the products that I'm using in today's crafts, I really hope this can kind of spark some creativity. So I hammered in some simple nails. And I just made 2 little squares. And I wanted to put a natural dye on them. I don't have varnish, but I also wanted to use something that was more eco-friendly and not toxic. So this is made out of steel wool and vinegar soaked for a couple of weeks. So I always have this in the cupboard. And the longer you leave it soaking, it seems to just get darker the longer you leave it. And also, depending on what wood you're putting it on, it seems to change colour according. So with this, I put a second coat on because I just wanted them a little bit darker. But I'm just going to show you here what I used. This is the steel wool that I got from a DIY store a long time ago. And then I filled it with some white vinegar, left it in a jar in a cupboard. And then as the weeks go on, it just gets darker and darker, like the jar behind it. And I'm delighted with the results. And they hold right beside the sink the little face powder and the oil and the deodorant. And I think they turned out pretty good for something that was going to be thrown out. The next little DIY I'm doing is making some scrunchies. Now I got this from Instagram. I saw it on Librito Reviews, and she was making these scrunchies, and I thought it was a great way of using up elastic bands because I have tons of them and I keep them in the kitchen drawer. And then I use scrap materials that I had lying around. They would never be used, but I always like to keep little scraps just in case a future project arises. And the great thing about these is you don't need a sewing machine. These are easy to do by hand. And in relation to length, I just pulled the elastic band out really long and then used that length of material. But because I had scraps, I was just going with whatever length I had. And I made one scrunchie that was about 1.5 inches wide. And then I made another scrunchie that was 3 inches wide. I think this is a great zero waste project because you've scraps of material that are left over and you've got elastic bands that need to be put to use. And for the big scrunchie, I thought I'd pop some lavender inside. And I have to say it worked out really, really well and gives your hair this wonderful smell. And if you don't have lavender, maybe some dried rosemary or really anything in there that's dried that you like the smell of. And then I added a button to the big one from my button drawer, just to give it a little bit more character. This is a really fun project that I think is a really nice gift as well for people. For the last little craft DIY I did was using up leftover wool that I have in a basket. I've never got round to using this wool. It's when your wool gets to the point where it's not enough to make something decent. I thought I would make some pom-poms. So I just cut out some cardboard. I just used a large jar and a small jar. I wasn't even too fussy with measuring anything. I just kept it really, really simple. Popped a hole in the big and a hole in the small, and then started making the pom-poms. Now with the colours, I just chose whatever colours I had available, and that matched. I was making these for the bedroom. And for the large pom-poms, I used about 200 loops around the 3 fingers. And just making sure you tie that string very much in the middle as you can get it. And I will just give more of a uniform circle. And again, if you look online, there's loads of different ways you can make these. I just found this really simple way. I pop the string then through the piece of cardboard. And what you're doing here is you just want to give it a nice little circular shape. So when you've done it one side, you then kind of flip it over another way, and then you do the same. And then for the small little loops, I just used 2 fingers and 100 loops. Tied it in the middle. And what I love about these kind of projects is they're really good for if it's somebody's birthday or a gift, or if you know somebody who has a baby. It's a really nice baby mobile. And you can use all pretty colours, whatever you have, if you have a box full of wool that's not being used. And there's the finished product. So what I then did was made the shape that I wanted, took a photo of it so that then I was able to reference, and then I tied strings from each middle of the pom-pom to the next pom-pom and so on. And then I just used a piece of wood that I found in the garden, but you also could use a hanger you have in the wardrobe. And I think this is a great little craft as well if you have kids, and you can finish it up afterwards when you have it kind of up on a wall, and then make sure that there's no little bits sticking out. And I just thought it's a nice addition to a very simple wall in our bedroom. So there are a couple of DIYs that have been keeping me busy, and I really hope you enjoyed watching them. If you did, give it a thumbs up. It really helps me a lot. And if you like this kind of thing, let me know and I will do more crafts and DIYs. I think it's really nice to use scrap stuff that you have around the house. There's always so much we can make with what we already have. And I will chat to you as always on Instagram or down below. Keep yourselves well. Loads of love to you all, and I'll see you in the next video.